Congratulations, you have an accepted offer. Hey guys, it's Jeff Bonk here with eXp Realty and the HBB Group here in Hoboken. And on part one, we took you through how do you get from the internet all the way through an accepted offer, all the things you needed to do and check out. We'll link below to that video. And here in part two, we're going to talk about what happens now. You have an accepted offer and how do you get to the closing table? We're going to take you step by step through each thing that you need to be thinking about and doing over the next 30 to 60 days until you get the keys and move into your new home. So come on, let's go through the steps one by one. So just to recap where we left off, you made an offer, the seller accepted it, you both signed the contract, and now we're going to start what's called attorney review. Attorney review is a little funny, so let's go through that a little bit in detail of what that actually is and what you need to be doing during that time. New Jersey is one of the few states that does this, but we have a fully signed contract. It's an 11-page contract. It looks official, it looks binding, but it's actually not at this point. During this period, you have 3 days to start what's called attorney review from the time the contract is fully executed. So your attorney is going to get in contact with you. They're going to go through the contract. They're going to say, hey, I don't like the way this is worded. I want to change this date a little bit. I think we need to figure out a little bit more clarity around this. And they're going to change a lot of the even boilerplate stuff that's in that 11-page New Jersey state contract. And when they do, they're going to put together a rider that says, hey, I disapprove of this contract the way it's written, but with these few changes, this is good for me and we can move forward. They're going to then go over that with you, send it to the seller side, and that's going to start attorney review. Now the seller's going to review that with their attorney and they're going to say, okay, we can agree to that one. We don't like this one. Let's change that one around, and back and forth we go. As long as you start that within 3 days, you're fine. If you don't, then you could forfeit your rights to attorney review. So make sure your attorney is ready to go. Any real estate attorney is going to know what to do here. So just make sure you connect with a local experienced one. That can stay open now for a day or 2 weeks. Just depends on how many different things each party wants to change and how quickly everybody communicates. Now, the thing to remember here is that during this time, anything can happen. The seller can get another offer. You can change your mind. You can say, I don't even feel like buying a house anymore. I found another one that works better. The seller can do the same thing. So if you really like the house and it's a strong market, the job here is to get in and out of attorney review as quickly as possible, safely, right? Make sure you understand everything and your attorney covers all the bases, but no delays, no lag times, because all you're doing is leaving yourself open to exposed to other people coming in and making offers. At that time, your attorney is really your main person. Your realtor will be there for a little bit of, hey, can you clarify this? Or hey, the attorney didn't get back to me yet. Can you jump on a call and explain something here? But really the attorney is going to be your main point of contact through that period. So let's say we agree on the rider, both sides sign, and we move on, right? We're good, now we're bound, right? That rider and that contract is a fully formed, executed contract. You can't walk away for any reason now. The seller can't walk away for any other reason. But there's a few contingencies we need to get to that could hang up the process here and could be a snag that does allow this contract not to get to the closing table. So let's go through those. So the two contingencies we have left are the mortgage contingency and the inspection contingency. So at this point, after attorney review is done, you're going to circle back with your realtor and we're going to talk about next steps on both of those items. First thing you need to do is start your mortgage application. So get back to that lender, start the application. They'll take you through the process of filling out some forms, collecting some paperwork, tax returns, pay stubs, things like that. That'll get that process underway. And we're also going to want to call an inspector to schedule an appointment to get in and inspect the property. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in a second. Along with those two contingencies, there's one other thing we have to do, and that is send in the deposit or the first down payment to the either buyer's attorney or the seller's attorney. During attorney review, it's going to be negotiated where that escrow is going to be held. It really doesn't matter. It's a separate safe account at either attorney's office. And there's going to be either 10 to 14 days, usually gets negotiated somewhere between 7 and 14 maybe during attorney review. And you're just going to need to send that check in to wherever you need to go. So let's say we get the check in the mail and we're scheduling our inspection and we're starting our mortgage app. What happens next from there? So two things we really need to focus on. One is being quick and being expedient with the mortgage lender and their team. The biggest hang up that really creates some slowdown and some problems in closing on time is if we don't work quickly with our mortgage department. They have a lot of files they're trying to clear and a lot of different things they're going to need from you. The government has not made it easy on them. They have a lot of requirements of the due diligence they need to do. And because obviously what happened in 2008, 2009, they were just giving loans to anybody. Now there is a good amount of work and good amount of document collection on your part. So make sure you're on top of that. You're working with your mortgage lender. And if you have a good local reputable one, it should be a smooth process, even though it could be a lot of work. The other thing we need to do is get the inspection scheduled. So we call the inspector, get a time, tell your realtor. The realtor tells us, the sellers, if that time works. We go in and now we're at the home inspection. That time is probably one or maybe one of two times that you'll be in that property before closing. So we always recommend bring a tape measure with you, bring a parent, a sibling, or an aunt, uncle, whoever wants to see the property that's getting excited. This is a good time to bring them, let them see the property. You can take measurements for ordering furniture. Maybe you're looking at some furniture the seller has that they want to sell. You're deciding if it's worth buying. This is kind of your time that while the inspection's happening, which will take an hour to 2 hours, that you can really get to see the property and make a few future plans for it, especially if it's owner occupied. We can't be going back in every few minutes and to check out different things. So it's important to use this time wisely. At the inspection, the inspector is going to have a checklist of things they're going to do. They're going to check appliances, they're going to check the roof, they're going to check windows, they're going to check electrical, plumbing, all these different things. And you can do one of two things. That's always kind of the recommendation we give. One is you can just enjoy that time to check out the house like we just talked about, and then the inspector will give you a recap at the end. Or you can kind of hang with the inspector and get to know the house a little bit better, the ins and outs. He'll be like, hey, this is perfectly fine, but you should change this filter every 6 months. Or hey, this looks great right now, but in 5 years, you might want to think about when you update your kitchen, switching out some ventilation or whatever the case may be, right? They're going to give you some real-time information of what you should be looking at, what's important about the home that you're buying. So from there, the inspector will give you a little recap at the end if there's any major issues to kind of just give you an idea of what he found. But within the next 24 to 48 hours, he's going to send you a full-blown report. Now, the inspectors we work with, they take pictures of everything. They have a digitalized version of this. It's like 30, 40 pages. And at the end will be a nice recap saying, you know, they'll give you green lights, red lights, yellow lights, like all throughout the report. And at the end, be like, these are the things that are issues that I would bring up to your attorney to see if the seller will give you a credit or fix it for you. Now, when we talked in part one, we talked about potentially waiving some inspection contingency, maybe waiving some mortgage appraisal contingency. You might have the ability to ask for some repairs or credits, or you might not, depending on the offer terms that you made. But let's say that you have the ability to ask for some problems. Let's say like the refrigerator's broken or the AC unit's not working as it should. It's not cooling off the property enough. What will happen is you'll make a list of those things with your attorney. The attorney sends that over to the seller's attorney, and there's another negotiation, kind of like attorney review, where we go back and forth. Hey, the seller's willing to bring someone to fix it, or the seller will give you $2,000 for you to do it when you close, and you can pick out the fridge that you want. It's a little bit of an open-ended conversation depending on the motivation of both the buyer and the seller, who wants to deal with the problem, who wants to hire the people to fix it, and it's just a case-by-case situation. Hopefully we can come to an agreement, because if not, this is one of those two situations where the deal may fall apart here. If you say, hey, I need all of these things done, the seller's like, I don't think they're problems, they're cosmetic, or they're not really addressable by my side, it's not important that I fix those things. You could have a disagreement there, and the deal could fall apart. Deposits get replaced as long as there's nobody negotiating in bad faith. The deposit will come back to you, and the seller will put the home back on the market. If there's some kind of malfeasance or some type of disagreement where maybe everyone wasn't negotiating in best faith, there could be arbitration or a lawsuit there. Luckily, of thousands of transactions, we've never seen that actually happen, but it does happen, so it's something to be aware of that we just need to keep an eye out for. So from there, we have our inspection contingency satisfied, hopefully. Everything's nice, everything's really good with the property, or the seller agrees to fix what they need to fix or credit. And now we have the other situation we're looking at, which is the mortgage application, and inside of that is the appraisal. So as you're working with your lender to get all the documents together, to get all the approvals done, to get all your tax returns in, the lender is also going to be calling the realtor to say, hey, we need to schedule an appraisal for someone to come out and make sure the home is worth what the buyer's paying for it. So the bank is protected. They're lending too much money on a property that's not worth it. So what happens is that appraiser will call us, and we'll just schedule that. It's a 5 or 10 minute appointment. Typically, they need to come out to take some pictures, maybe do a quick floor plan, make sure the place is how it seems on the pictures they saw on the MLS or online. And you could be there for that, but it's usually in the middle of the day. Most buyers are just busy with work and things like that. And since it's so quick and they've been in there for a couple hours for the inspection, the realtor will just open the door, let the appraiser in, and work with them on that. A good realtor is going to show up prepared, though, because appraisers really hold some power here to appraise the property high, low. There's a lot of opinion that goes into this. So what we do is we bring the best comps, we bring the contract, we bring the management company information. We make sure that we're making that appraiser's life super easy, so they have a very clear path to do their job and are not hung up on different things and maybe in a bad mood that day. And they're like, you know what, this home's not worth as much as and whatever. We take all those things away. So the appraiser really wants to help us get the contract price and make a smooth process for the buyer. When that happens, the appraiser is going to send that report back to the lender. The lender is hopefully going to get a report that says, awesome, the home appraised for what the buyer is willing to pay. And that's going to be a contingency that gets knocked off. The appraisal is good. That's not an issue. If the home appraises under the price you're paying, that could create some issues. I won't go into full detail here because there's about 15 different situations, but 1, you can bring some more cash to the table. 2, the deal could fall apart. 3, the seller may lower the price to where the appraised value came in. And there's a lot of different nuances to go into there. We'll do a separate video on that, but that's another contingency that we have to look at inside of the mortgage contingency. From there, we're just going to finish underwriting with the mortgage company. The mortgage company is going to make sure the HOA is in good standing, that you still have your job, that your credit is what they looked at early on. They're going to recheck your credit, recheck employment status, and make sure also the building doesn't have any major red flags, any big loans against it, any bad financials, any bad tax liens, anything that could come up that would devalue the property and create an issue for them as the lender, but also for you as the buyer. So it's nice that this happens because you're getting a second set of eyes checking out all these things of the documents that you got to review yourself during attorney review, but now they're reviewing them as well. Let's say everything's good. The lender's then going to give you a mortgage commitment. Now this is going to satisfy the second contingency that we were talking about. First one's inspection, second one, mortgage contingency. This means the appraisal's good. This means the financials are good of the building. This means that you've been finally approved and tax records checked and credit checked, everything like that. And now we're going to have all our contingencies out of the way, and we're going to be moving towards closing. That period takes usually 30 days or so to get through. The mortgage is going to be a lot of that work, and the inspection is going to happen inside that same window. That period took about 30 days, and let's say we have about 2 weeks left to the closing date. That closing date's a moving target. It could move a day or two up, a day or two back, no more than that, but it's really just going to depend on if the lender has a few more documents they need to get into place, what the seller situation is, what your situation is. But at this point, we can kind of finalize that date. So let's say it's going to be August 5th for sake of argument. Now, you have 2 weeks left till closing. There's not much left to do. It kind of feels like a little bit of a lull, but in the background, your attorney is going to hire a title company. Now, the title company is going to check and make sure that all the owners of this property before, none of them left any liens on the property. Nobody hired a contractor and didn't pay them. Nobody had any back taxes. There's no weird, this thing called tideland, some funky government stuff that like has a claim on the property. They're going to search back as far as they can until the property was, when the property was first established or built. They're going to say, all right, this is clear title. There's nobody that has any claims to this property. And they're going to issue insurance as well. They're going to say, if anyone does come with any, we're going to stand up and we're going to pay it or take care of it because we've searched back as far as we can. That's their job. And they work with the attorney to do that, right? Nothing that you need to do, but something you should be aware of. Once in a while, something pops up that needs to be cleared. Usually it's overcomable. That person gets their money, gets paid. We close that lien and we move forward. Now you have clear title. After that, we're going to start seeing closing docs prepared. It's called a closing disclosure, also known as a CD. And that's going to essentially be like a P&L almost of the transaction of you brought this much money, the seller has a mortgage they have to pay off still, there's these prepaid taxes, prepaid HOA fees, some prorated items, and it's kind of just have everything itemized down. That's going to get delivered to you about 3 or 4 days before the closing date from your title company or your attorney or a mixture of both. They're working kind of in conjunction here. On that closing disclosure, it's going to say the exact amount of money you need to bring to closing table. Let's just say, for example, you bought $1 million property, you put 20% down, which means you put half of that as an initial down payment. So you sent 100 grand in, what we talked about a few minutes ago. You're gonna have another 100 grand to bring. There's also gonna be some fees that are in there. The attorney's fees in there. There's gonna be some prorated taxes in there, some prorated HOA fees. So let's say it's $110,000, $120,000, something like that, including those closing fees and the second half of that down payment. You're gonna get that number 3 to 4 days before the closing date. Now, if the closing date moves for any reason, that number can change by a couple $100 here or there because those prorated things will change as well. Just something to would be aware of there. But it's going to be right in that window. You're going to review that with your attorney. You should even probably review that with your realtor as well. Make sure that all those numbers line up. Every now and then, a title company misses something. A lender sends in something that doesn't make sense, and it could not be exactly correct. We found mistakes on it before, so it's always good to review them, understand what you're looking at, so you're coming to the closing table educated and prepared on what's going to happen. Let's say we get that, everything looks good, we move forward, our closing day is here. We are going to do a final walkthrough of the property. So what we're doing here is the sellers moved out. They've, movers came, they did any repairs they needed to do, anything that was open-ended was hopefully handled. Now we're going to go make sure that's the case before we go hand over another big check and officially take possession of the property. We've had times where people haven't moved everything out. They left some stuff they weren't supposed to. Maybe it's going to be costly to dispose of those items. Or one time we even had a pipe bust the day of closing, and we had to unwind everything. It was still the seller's property. It was their responsibility to take care of that issue. So we want to do that walkthrough as close to the closing time as possible. Let's say the closing time's at noon. We can do that at 9 or 10, leave us a little buffer to get to the attorney's office. Perfect. Some people want to do it a day or two before because their schedules don't allow. You can. but you're leaving yourself a little open that now you bought the property, you walk in and something's wrong and something happened in the meantime. It's not the greatest plan, but it's doable if you have to, if your schedule's really crazy. But our recommendation is day of, morning of closing, do the walkthrough. Let's say we do the walkthrough, everything's fine. If it's not, it's a negotiation. We tell our attorney, hey, we got to figure out a solution for this, a credit, or they have to come in and fix this thing, whatever the case may be, depending how big or small it is. But everything's fine, we move on. We go, we get our check. If we haven't done that the night before, we go to the bank. It needs to be certified this time because now it's going to transfer right. You're going to get the keys, you're going to get title at that closing table. So we need to make sure the funds are certified. You go to the attorney's office or the title company, depending on where they have agreed to do the closing. And there's going to be a stack of paper like this for you to sign. You're going to sign, a whole bunch of mortgage docs, a whole bunch of loan docs, a whole bunch of promise to pay docs, some stuff for the city, some stuff for title, some stuff for deed, all these different documents. Either the attorney or the title company is going to go through one by one with you. It takes about an hour, hour and a half. At that time, you hand over your check, the bank sends the funding, and the realtor swoops in from around the corner with your keys and your bottle of champagne, and you now own a new home. Congratulations. It's been a journey and it's been a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end. It's a fun process if you know what you're doing ahead of time. That's why hopefully these videos have given you a little information to what the process looks like, what you should be prepared for. The thing that we hate seeing is someone come in and they're not prepared, they're not educated in the process, and every step along the way is frustrating to them. They're not expecting it, they didn't know they had to do this, they didn't know they'd have to deal with that. If you know what you're going into and you know what to expect, it makes the process so much smoother. So feel free, reach out to us. This is the overview of what the general process looks like, but your situation is going to be different. Everybody's is. We're going to take you step by step, just like this we just talked about, but customized to you, so that when you're going through it yourself, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, the mortgage process does suck, but I knew that was going to suck and I'm prepared. I have my tax records together, I have my employment numbers together, all those different things. And you're just going to be more educated. It's going to be a better process for you. So reach out. We'd love to talk to you one-on-one. We're always here to answer your questions. Have a great, great day.